Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Blake Stone Real Estate Show. Exciting brand new show. Tons of great stuff to talk about. Really big news in real estate market. We officially have decline in sales and also decline in prices month versus month. We'll talk about that, what that looks like, and kind of what to expect. And it's not that big a deal yet. Year versus year still up. But if you look at the trend the past couple months, we'll talk about, you're seeing significant decline in terms of price. And some of that's just normalization, but we're really kind of dig in and say, look, what's going on there? And what's happening? There's a lot of gloom and doom, a lot of different things, and you're seeing half the news say is going to crash, half the news say it's not going to crash. So we'll dig in, look at the data, but really we'll dig into what the Myrtle Beach market looks like and how do we compare against a lot of other markets and just help you make the best decisions you can. And our goal is the same thing has been for over 10 plus years here on the station. That's just to help give you the right data, right information to help you make the absolute best decisions you can with one of your largest assets, which is real estate. So we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about one thing I've been seeing lately as a business owner and really a top team leader is why actually is now a really good time to buy. Buyers can actually buy their dream home without getting outbid. We've seen this happen a lot. And we've actually seen sales kind of creep back up in the last couple of weeks in terms of new pending deals. I did a news interview this week with WMBF, and I'll talk about in today's show what we really talked about, what their concern was, and some of the things that we addressed, which is interesting. And we'll talk about how much interest rates are affecting what's happening across the marketplace. We'll talk about inventory being up. And that's something we'll talk about as well. We'll look at, is it just a correction or is it kind of a crash? And we'll look at kind of what the difference is in those two. The good news is some amazing success stories. Our team's been absolutely crushing it, making the adjustments, doubling down in terms of productivity, while a lot of other agents are just kind of going through the motions and they're seeing the market change. But also a very big horror story that happened with someone who went with one of those investors, the home buyers you hear on the radio, and it was very bad. Person had cancer, all kind of things, and thankfully came to us. We helped save them that situation, which is awesome. So we'll talk about that. Also, work with a large fund, that's looking for properties here that we're able to match up with our seller clients very quickly. So we'll talk about that and how it can help people get top dollar and still get the properties sold, but give the absolute best price for it. We'll talk about that today.
All right, a lot of stuff to get to. If you just tuned in for the very first time and you're not sure who
Forgot about
what you're listening to, it's the Expert Advantage Real Estate Show, hosted by Blake Sloan. Blake Sloan has been called the real estate whiz kid. He's been featured in Forbes magazine, Wall Street Journal, Realtor magazine, other national publications. You may be seen on TV with NBC and also with Fox and Fox Morning Show. You've heard the pushing endorsements here backed by Sean Hannity, Barbara Ferguson, Gary Lavats. Put them all together, it's just totally unprecedented. Now that's one thing, but the other thing is that Blake has trademark systems for both home sellers and home buyers. They are trademarked, so we can't give you all the details, but more than happy every week to tell you the most important part of that system.
Yes, and if I had to just like break it down of like what can we make this show just be, I'd make it one giant PSA that just says like, look, do not make the same mistake that everyone makes. Everyone makes the same mistake over and over. I literally watch it every single week. I talk about it every week. Thankfully, everyone that listens to this show is mostly to know, but the mistake they make is thinking that all real estate agents are the same, and it could not be any further from the truth, right? Just like any doctor, any lawyer, any dentist, anything that you're talking about that type of business. You have really good ones, and you have some that aren't so good. Majority in the middle, the masses just don't do a whole lot in that scenario. So here's the deal. The single most important variable that determines your failure or success as a home seller comes down to one thing only. And that thing is the agent that you choose, period. I say this every week because it's that important. Everyone just makes this mistake of thinking that everyone's the same. It's very similar. And it's not true, right? It's not just putting MLS and some buyers come, right? The reality is in selling a property, there's 118 different variables from A to Z. How do we know that? Because we took the time to slow down and map every single one of them out and identify what had to happen the right way in the right order to get the result that you want. And so if each one of those variables is handled correctly, guess what that does? Puts money in your pocket, property gets sold, hopefully for the most amount of money. If anything's handled incorrectly, aka they drop the ball at any point, that costs you your hard-earned equity or the property doesn't get sold. Now, we're seeing a little bit more of the properties not getting sold as you see them sit on the market longer. Before, when it's a super hot market, we were kind of calling it a frenzy. People that weren't very good in real estate could get in and still sell properties. We saw people come in, they take some photos on their cell phone that were terrible and put on the market and it still sells. Sellers thought they did a great job, not realizing that the agent didn't do the best job and they left $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 on the table. And so it can be anything that you see right now, especially with the market shifting. It's much more important than ever to make sure that all those 118 variables are handled correctly. When it's a frenzy, you might be able to get away with 110 or 100 of them and still get the property sold. But now every single one of those variables matter. It could be anything from the quality of the photos, right? Your first showing happens online. Could be the order of the photos. Does your agent answer the telephone when a buyer calls that for sale sign? To respond to a web lead online that gets submitted at 11 o'clock at night? If they do respond, how long does it take them to respond? A day or two, right? You see this over and over and over. You know the same thing. You call most agents, they don't answer the phone or call you back. And so that's a reality of what happens. And you see the ball get dropped over and over and over. And so what I said, look, there's got to be a better way. The old school way, the way that everyone really operates, is the 3 Ps. Number one, they promise you the world to get the listing, meaning they tell you anything and everything to get you to list their property with them. Usually that they're number one. We're not sure exactly what they're number one on, but they always say number one, right? The second thing they do is they put it into MLS, which is the multiple listing service, which is all realtors put stuff there. It syndicates to all the major sites, realtor.com, things like that. And then 3, they sit back and pray that someone else brings a buyer, meaning that they take the whole listing, they split the commission half and half. A buyer from a different company comes in, writes the offer up, they're fine with it, right? And so then they're down the street trying to get the next listing, because that's how most people survive. And I said, look, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way to make this process work and be much better for consumers. And so I sought out years and years ago to look at what people did outside of real estate in other industries and say, how can we take the way they operate real businesses and bring that into the world of real estate and give that consumer a great experience? And so that's what we did. And we sought out and said, look, let's first outline every single variable. That's how we know there's 118. We create a system that's proven and repeatable, that creates maximum leverage every single point. We call that stacking the dominoes. So I want to make sure I handle, right, point 1 with precision, point 2 with precision, and I stack those dominoes up. And what each one does, it creates a small gap of competition, right? A small gap of really getting ahead of the other people. And what happens is when you stack all those up, it creates a massive gap. One of the old analogies I used to use on this show is that you watch a marathon. Everyone takes a marathon, right? They shoot the shotgun start. Everyone takes off. Looks like it's a big crowd. But what you notice, after a little while, they start to spread out. And at the end of the marathon, some people finish 2, 3, 4 hours ahead of other people. And so the reality is the same exact thing that we do in real estate is create small increments that create a massive competitive advantage for our clients. And so we use 2 things to make that work. We use technology. We spent massive amounts of money in technology to make sure that obviously we have the absolute best tech that gives our clients the best advantage. But number 2, we have a team of people who manages each and every aspect to make sure every one of those balls get handled correctly. The dominoes are stacked up in the right order and they get knocked over to give our clients that huge competitive advantage. And 2 things, right? They sell faster through matching up buyers and sellers and technology. We'll talk about it later. And really, they sell for more money because of how it's positioned, how it's done. And so that's the key part here. And we designed that system. It's called the Guaranteed Sold System. The only proven system sells twice as fast and for up to 20% more money than traditional methods. And it works very, 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 very well, right? I designed it. We licensed it to other agents, other parts of the country. And it works very, very, very well. And anytime we sit down with anyone, even other agents who own property here that don't live here and have been in the business 10, 20, 30 years, we sit down with them and show them, and it absolutely blows their mind because they haven't seen anything like it. And what it is we looked at how other industries operated and set up the same type model. We have a team brokerage, meaning that everyone on our team is a specialist, not just some generalist who's trying to do everything. And so most agents you have is like having the same person at McDonald's do the front register, the drive-through, and the French fries at the same time, which is very inefficient, which is why you have bad service. And it's the same reason you have bad service when you sell your home, because you have one person trying to do all 118 different variables on 10 different listings. And so with our system here, it gives you a huge competitive advantage, and you owe it to yourself to just reach out, learn about it. And we share this every week because I see so many horror stories, so many instances where people, they just would have known or just would have reached out, could have put $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in their pocket and really saved a lot of headache. Now, here's the deal. There's 100 plus variables on the buyer side when you buy a property that give you an advantage or even give you a disadvantage. And so it's the same thing there. Most agents are just winging it. If you look at the data, the average agent in our marketplace sells 4.3 homes per year, which is terrible. That's once a quarter, right? You wouldn't want to get LASIK eye surgery from a doctor who's only done 4. I don't want to be represented by an attorney who's only done 4 cases. I want the absolute best, most aggressive. And so that's why it's important for you to have someone who understands the marketplace, is a true expert, also has those systems and processes behind them. And we designed this thing for buyers called the Unfair Advantage Home Buying System. Gets priority access to foreclosures, distress sales, desperate sellers, the absolute best negotiation and purchase price, right? As well as home inspection negotiation to get you that ultimate competitive advantage. So if you've listened to this show for a while, you owe it to yourself. Make me a promise. If you ever think about selling, right, reach out to me and call me. At least take a look at it, because it'll absolutely blow your mind. Any friend or relative you run into, have them understand, look, all agents aren't the same, right? There's true experts, there's the average in the middle, and there's some that don't really know very much at all. But you cannot gamble with your largest assets, which is your real estate. So we'll talk about more about that. Take a quick break. Be right back in a second.
Here with my trusted friend in the real estate market, Blake Sloan of Sloan Realty Group. So what do home sellers, what do they need to know about the market right now?
Home sellers need to know the market here on the Grand Strand absolutely on fire. We're seeing record numbers in terms of prices that sellers are getting. It's almost unbelievable. We're seeing hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars coming in from the Northeast that are just coming bidding up properties and getting sellers more money than they ever thought possible.
Got it. Now, how will that get them more money?
That's going to help get home sellers more money because there's more buyers here than we've ever seen before. But we're not sure how long that's going to last. We are seeing that start to level off a little bit, and some of that interest has started to slow down. So sellers definitely need to take advantage of the super hot market right now before there's any type of shift.
All right, as always, thanks for the insight. Call Blake Sloan today at 808-SOLD. That's 808-SOLD. Or online at blakesloan.com. That's blakesloan.com.
Hi, I'm Barbara Porter. I'm excited to connect with Blake Sloan, the only real estate agent in Myrtle Beach that I recommend. We offer several options for home sellers, and it really takes away the stress.
That's right. For sellers in a time crunch, you can agree to sell it by a certain date, take cash for your home, or even rent it.
That's great. And if the seller has a bit more time,
We use our proven marketing plan and sell it for the highest price.
work with my friend Blake Sloan and get your home sold on your terms.
Welcome back to Blake Sloan Real Estate Show. Brand new market update and some very, very, very interesting numbers. We'll talk about that. Obviously, there's two types of numbers we talk about. We have numbers that are really in arrears, the rear view mirror numbers, I call them. That's what's closed. That's what most people use across the country. Most agents use is like what's closed. But the only challenge with that, that really kind of shows you what happened 30 to 60 days ago, because most properties go under contract. They go through a process, right, with underwriting, getting loans, inspections. It take 30, 45, sometimes 60 days. So that kind of shows you what happens in arrears, but that's really kind of the most reliable data to look at. The only problem is if you're making quick decisions, you want to look at what's happening real time. So we kind of have the overall, let's say, windshield data, which is what's happening in front. So I can predict what happens going forward. We started doing this back in COVID during the lockdown. Remember the shows? We started saying, look, how do I know real time what's going on? When literally they kind of, remember they locked us down and you couldn't stay in hotels. I'm like, holy cow, what are we going to do here? So I started looking every day how many properties went under contract the last 7 days. I've been doing that ever since. Really, we track it with our team every morning. We go through it. We look at two main things, right? Look at how many properties went under contract in the last 7 days, and then also look at how much inventory there is, because that's what happened very quickly as inventory dried up. Then people started buying again. Inventory went way down to an inventory crisis. And so right now we're seeing two things. We've seen sales that have closed have declined, but also pending deals drop dramatically once you saw rates go down. Once you saw rates go up, once it went over 6.25%, pretty much, I think 6.23, but very, very close. You saw people pump the brakes. They got very, very, scared about that. And a lot of buyers jumped out the game. Now, what's happened, rates have gone back down recently. We'll talk about the exact number in a few minutes, but we've seen pending deals jump back up, which is awesome. So remember last week's show, we talked, there was 561 properties that went under contract from that whole basically last 7 days. And it was $192,050,444, which is not bad, right? There's 735 properties that are active right now, as of today, as of the show, like live right now, 591 under contract, 208 million. So we saw a big increase, which is great, right? Which is awesome. Now, you got 3 weeks ago, only 482 under contract for 171 million for that 7-day period. Week before that, obviously, which I think is 4 weeks before, 502 under contract, 171 million. Go back another week before that, it was 567, 580, then 522. Then you go 8 weeks ago when it kind of peaked out really, it was 660. And 9 weeks ago was 690. And so we saw it go back down to the 400s. Now it's back up to the 500, which is really good. I've really said ever since COVID-19 lockdown, anything 200 million in a 7-day period is very, very, very strong for our market, which is awesome news. I think we may see a little bump back up in terms of sales next month, which should be good for us. And it just kind of say some buyers really got that initial sticker shock and fear once the rates went up, but then they realized, hey, look, I have life going on. I don't like where I live. I'm relocating, or I'm moving up or moving down, or whatever it is. Life continues to go on, and buyers kind of say, okay, this is affordable. It's not too bad. Rates are back down below 6%. So we'll talk about that as well. The good news is in the last 7 days, there have been 13 properties over $1 million going to contract, 2 over $2 million, 97 properties over 500,000, which is amazing, right? It's actually better than last week. So last week was 735 active, 12 properties over 1 million. This week's 13. And then last week was 81 properties over 500,000. This week, 97. So we've seen inventory increase as well. Right now, 788 active properties that are single family homes in Horry County, which is great news. Remember back to, it was in the 300s at one point. And really just a couple months ago, it was very, very, very low. If I go back to 9 weeks ago, 690 under contract, I mentioned, only 382 properties for sale in the market. That's when the bidding wars were. That's when buyers are very, very frustrated. They couldn't get what they want. There's 6-7 offers as of right now, right? Only 100 less properties per week under contract, but 788 active properties just in Horry County. So that's a lot more inventory and a lot more opportunity for buyers that can buy. We'll talk about that here in a few minutes. Looking at overall numbers, I'll just get into the arrears numbers. This is what the news was asking about this week when I did a great story for WMBF. But just talked about what's going on, what's happening with sales. We did see pendings drop down, like I said, last month, a little bit before that, from where it had been around that 690, 700 range. But single-family homes last month was down 17.6% from the same time last year, so pretty significant. So looking at overall June 2022, right, the June 2022 numbers were 657 under contract versus 2021, 797. So significant drop there in terms of actual sales in that piece. Now, here's a key part. We've seen prices decline for the past few months, but median price is actually up from last year at 17.5%, up from last year at 370,000. So if you go back to June of last year, it's 315. This year it's 370. Now, if you understand the data and you really want to look, I want to know, like, I don't really, be honest, I don't care what happened last year necessarily. I know we're seasonal, but I want to know what's happening right now. And if you look at month versus month, it looks to have peaked out price wise in May at 380,000, and it dropped to 370 overall last month. And now we notice average sale price really kind of reacts a lot faster. It tells me what's happening a little more in real time because you can see the averages change. If you look at average sale price, it shows up 12.2% from last year at 449,000, but it looks to have peaked out price wise in April. So in April, we peaked out at $486,984. Then it dropped down in May, $475,218, and then it just dropped again in June at $449,062. And so from the peak of $486,984 in April down to $449,062 in June, that's about an 8% drop that you're seeing in prices just in the last 2 or 3 months, which is interesting. And so some of that has to do with that market correction, right? People are just picking prices out of thin air. They're making just really crazy numbers, and people were actually buying it. But as rates started going up in March, guess what? All of a sudden, you started seeing prices peak out in April. Like I mentioned, it's always kind of that rear view mirror, because what happened was contracts slowed down starting in March. They were still pending. They closed in April, and you've slowly seen that kind of come down a little bit. And I look at that a little bit more as normalizing, right? There's a lot of wild cards in this. I get this question like 6 times a day. From a real estate standpoint, it's fairly healthy. I think there needs to be some normalization, right? We talked about prices for condos up over 45% year over year. Some of that stuff's just not sustainable, right? But also, there's obviously some challenges with the economy, things going on. The good news is this time it's not driven by housing. We're in 2008 when I was in the business, and I was been in the business since 2005 in January. Grew up in the business, whole family sold real estate, mom, dad, aunt, uncle, grandpa, grandma. So growing up in the business and seen a lot of things happen. But the difference in '08 is everyone that bought at the peak was just buying speculation. We would sell condos, close on it at 50,000 the next day, never seen it before. This has been a whole lot more owner occupants, because the challenge is we still have this wild card that's really helping protect price, which is the inventory challenge. And so what happened is we're in a 5 million unit home shortage after the 2008 crisis, because what happened, if you remember, look back in 2008 when you drove around after that crash, you just saw a bunch of empty neighborhoods with like the roads there, but no houses, right? Because most of those developers, a lot of them, even the major ones, got wiped out and didn't build a whole lot of homes between 2008, 2012. And once they started finally coming back around, what happened was there's just a significant, really just a overall need for homes because now we're in a huge shortage. And so that's going to be the wild card here in terms of my overall opinion. I think there's just some crazy stuff going on with government, the financial markets in general, inflation, just all these different pieces right now swirling around. And so I do think that, my overall long-term play, I've been telling my clients about this too, is like, look, the long-term play, definitely real estate is very, very valuable. If you're looking to own this for a long time, your forever house or investment property, you want to build an Airbnb or something you want to own for years and years, it's a great time to get in right now, just because there's not that frenzy of before. Rates are not that much above where they were just 8 weeks ago when there was a frenzy. And so I think there's a great opportunity here for long term. The one thing we really share with our team this week, I'll just kind of do it early, is that before, let's say 2 months ago, 9, 10, 11, 12 weeks ago, what you're seeing is people would come down, they'd see their dream house, they want it, fell in love with it. The problem was there's 5, 6, 7, 8 offers on it. They get that massive disappointment not getting the house they want. Then they go try to find something else, and then ultimately they'd settle for something, or they just go really, really big on like the fourth one they missed because they're tired of missing things. And it wasn't very fun, and it wasn't really getting what they want. What we've seen now is things have softened a little bit, and I like to call it more normalizing back to what it was, getting towards pre-COVID. We're not quite there yet, but that's one thing I think that's very, very healthy. That look, now we're seeing a lot of buyers who are smart, who are saying, look, I want to own a Myrtle Beach long term. I want to live here long term. I understand the long play and what real estate does overall. Over a long period of time. Now, look, I want to be able to buy. Now they can buy their dream home. The rates aren't too bad. If the rates, guess what? Rates go back down. Eventually, guess what you do? You just refinance and you get the low rate once that happens. And so there's so many different things that are really, really good right now in terms of Myrtle Beach. Obviously, we talked about being one of the fastest growing cities in the country. So we'll get to that later, but very, very good time right now if you're thinking about buying to get in, right? A lot of times you can still buy for much cheaper than you can rent. We've seen rent skyrocket. I saw someone this week, 1 bedroom, renting for $1,750 for a condo, which is just insane. And so also looking to buy investment property, you're still having great clients with great returns in terms of their money. And so that's something to keep watching for as well. Back to numbers really quick. One thing that we've seen, inventory has jumped up significantly, like I mentioned, 38.5% for overall single family resale homes versus last year. 1.8 months of inventory right now overall, where if you look back just in June last year, it was 1.3 months of inventory. We had an all-time low back in December, and January was at 0.9 months. And so that's a super seller's market. Really, it's an inventory crisis overall. And so you're just seeing a whole lot less competition. We're seeing overall showings per listing down 27.4% from the same time last year. If you go back to my show on YouTube about, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks ago, I talked about, hey, look, we're seeing buyer traffic down about 25+% in terms of what buyers are searching for online. You're seeing that show up right now in terms of actual showings per listing. And so right on, kind of track with that. Other thing too, condo sales down significantly overall. Condo sales down 28.4% from the same time last year. Overall prices, if you look at prices, median price, it's kind of been flat, which is good. Price up 38.6% from the same time last year at $238,000. Looks like it kind of peaked there median wise in May at $240. Then it finally dropped back down to $238. Looking right now though, median price did drop the first time in a while, month versus month. May is $276,661. In June, $273,454. So not that big of a decline, which is good. You have seen a big jump in inventory. Inventory's jumped up a lot overall in terms of what they're having. Trying to pull that report up right now, but it's not coming. So that's the one thing that we're seeing overall. Inventory up 41.7%. And so that's just kind of the overall scene across the board, which is great news for home buyers. If I'm a home seller, though, I have to always understand the law of supply and demand, right? As demand goes down and supply goes up, I know that the lagging indicator is always price. And so you're always going to see softening of price. I like to mention that's more normalizing. Just because you're seeing prices decline a little bit as rates go up, right, does not necessarily mean there's a crash. It means more of a correction at this point. But again, there's a lot of wild cards. No one knows the exact thing, but I do know Myrtle Beach is very, very well positioned in terms of super high demand still. People still want to be here, and we're very, very, very affordable compared to a lot of the markets in the country. We're getting so many investors right now trying to buy Airbnbs from the West Coast, from just all over, because they've seen the value of the numbers that it brings in. So one thing driving that has been interest rates. Look at interest rates right now. Last week's show was 5.71% for a 30-year fixed rate. Right now, 5.69 for a 30-year fixed rate, which is awesome. We had the best, really lowest rates in 2 weeks this past week, which is awesome. A 15-year fixed rate right now, 4.95%, which is pretty awesome. 30-year jumbo loan, 4.82%, which is good. We're seeing a lot of high-end stuff move still because of that. 5-year adjust rate mortgage, 5.45%. A 30-year FHA, 5.22%, and a 30-year VA loan right now, 5.29%. And so if I'm thinking about buying, right, there's great opportunity still. You can get the home that you want. You're not getting outbid, paying 20, 30, 40, 50,000 over asking price. And if I'm looking at moving laterally or up or down, you can still get great price for your property, and you can still have a little bit of negotiation ability and actually pick the one you want. If you remember going back our show about 8-9 months ago, we talked about this big problem. I've been talking about this for a couple of years as I've seen it happen to other markets. It creates this stalemate because no one wants to sell because they can't find anything to buy, right? There's no inventory to find anything to buy. We've even had a lot of sellers, they called us to sell, they wanted to sell, then all of a sudden they start searching and realize, like, man, there's nothing out here for me to buy. And so then they pull their house off the market. Now the inventory for the single family homes in Myrtle Beach and Horry County has literally doubled. And so now there's so much more opportunity. You can make that move. Rates aren't that much more than they were just a month or 2 months ago. So definitely take advantage of that. But if you want to cash out, and I'm thinking about, hey, look, is it scraping the top? And I got that question the other day. Yeah, for now, I do think we're scraping the top for at least, this little cycle. Again, I think long term, we all know what happens real estate long term. It continually goes up over long term. So if you want to know more about what to do, your specific situation, reach out, call me, 843-808-SOLD. If you're thinking about selling, there's still massive buyer demand right now. Like I mentioned, $200+ million under contract in the last 7 days. There's still buyers pumping in from all across the country and specifically the Northeast. So if you want to know more how it works, reach out, call us, 843-808-SOLD or BlakeSloan.com anytime.
WRNN listeners, Clay Travis here. As investors in real estate, Buck and I both
We got like a minute left.
what to look for to find the agent with the best
Let's
in marketing to get the highest sales price possible for us. Only true, Clay. Here in Myrtle Beach,
let's cut out
I didn't realize it was that.
I didn't either. I don't know.
I thought it was
It's like-
last time I looked at the clock was about 5 minutes.
So let's don't do the last
I
commercial.
won't do the last call, so you come back and you'll have about, I don't know, a minute and a half. It won't be very long.
Okay.
So I'll give you a 1 minute. It's like this. That's 30 seconds. 30 seconds.
Yeah, give me like a, hey, we gotta cut it.
Yeah.
That way I know.
And if I start playing the music, you can still talk over it. Don't worry about it.
How long?
Nearly 750 five-star reviews by Googling Sloan Realty Group. Give Blake a call today and start packing. That's Sloan Realty Group. And tune in to Blake's show Saturdays at 9 a.m. and Sundays at 11:30 a.m.
Welcome back to Blake Sloan Real Estate Show. Only a minute and a half left, but just want to get to a hot buyers alert. My team and I have 68,754 active home buyers right now looking to buy. We outspend the average agent 100 to 1. And so unlike most agents who just put a sign in the yard and hope someone buys it, I've been spending tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars for years. And we have buyers we can match up with your property. Really quick success story. Laurie and Theodore, she was diagnosed with cancer, needed to sell her home to get back to be close to her family. She called a local Myrtle Beach home buyer who advertises on the radio, who would buy the house, made her an offer. She thought it was a great offer. She gets to the day of closing 30 days later. He tells her he can't buy. Her home's only worth half of what he was going to pay her before. She was in a tight spot. He knew that, and he took advantage of that, in her opinion. So thankfully, she didn't give in to his antics. Reach out to us. We came in. We got her $100,000 more dollars than she had in less than 5 days, and it's in her pocket. So if you want to know how it works, reach out, call me, 843-808-SOLD, BlakeSloan.com anytime. Man, that one went by quick.